The most inspiring scientific discovery ever is that we've dramatically underestimated life's future potential, said futurist Max Tegmark in Life 3.0. Through the development of a branch of genetics called Nutrigenomics, which is the study of how plants and dietary components can change gene expression, we have learned that a person's health experience is not necessarily predicated on the DNA they inherited from their ancestors. As stated in Super Genes, the groundbreaking new book by Deepak Chopra and Rudolph Tanzi, disease-associated gene mutations that will actually destine a person to acquire a disease with certainty in the span of a normal lifespan amount to only 5% of all diseases-associated mutations. This is new, irrefutable scientific evidence that the majority of diseases are preventable through changes in diet and lifestyle that can alter gene expression by turning off the bad inherited genes and turning on the good genes that protect the body from oxidative stress and environmental assaults. Furthermore, medications, chemicals, and toxins that are supposed to improve our daily lives are rather causing mutations in the DNA, leading to cancer and other diseases that can easily be avoided by taking precautions earlier in life. World-famous neurologist and Alzheimer's specialist Dr. David Perlmutter states, "To cure disease after it has appeared is like digging a well when one feels thirsty." If simple dietary and lifestyle changes can mitigate diseases, extend lifespan, and improve vitality and human performance, why are the United States and many parts of the Western world in a health crisis with obese populations and an epidemic of chronic diseases? This paper is a sounding bell for people to learn about nutrigenomics and take back control of their own biology by becoming a health advocate, researcher, and not to wait for the medical community to catch up to provide this information. The biggest risk to society today is the misinformation from medical professionals themselves and the media, which are the two main resources where consumers get their health information. These key channels of influence are not supporting disease prevention or advancing human health, other than pushing pills and promoting industrialized foods. The goal of this paper is to refute the antiquated belief that DNA is the key predictor of health and lifespan, and to educate society on nutrigenomics, which has the potential to revolutionize the way humans age by improving health and longevity and advancing human evolution. According to Drs. Sales, Pellegrini, and Gorsh, the nutrigenomics movement started with the advance of science after the conclusion of the Human Genome Project, where scientists started questioning if the interaction between genes and food bioactive compounds could positively or negatively influence an individual's health. In order to assess this interaction between genes and nutrients, the term nutrigenomics was created. Nutrigenomics is defined as the study of a branch of genetic research about how foods affect our genes and how, in return, genetic variations affect the way we react to nutrients in foods. While still considered an emerging industry, nutrigenomics is slowly beginning to transform how we eat, how cutting-edge doctors prescribe medicine, and how holistic nutritionists recommend diets. Simply put, the one-size-fits-all diet will eventually become obsolete. The news everyone should hear is that gene activity is largely under our control. That's the breakthrough idea emerging from the new genetics. As stated in the New York Times best-selling book, Super Genes, nutrigenomics also educates us on what gene expression can mean for average human lifespan, which might easily double over the next 100 years. If you can remember learning about the human genome back in high school biology class, then you know that a human has around 3 billion DNA pairs within our 23 pairs of chromosomes. The cell's database, which contains the code for absolutely everything about you, starts with just 4 molecules, which are called base pairs. These base pairs are connected with what looks like a handrail that makes up a cable. This whole structure is known as DNA. As discussed in Super Genes, after almost 20 years of research and development, the Human Genome Project ended in 2003 with a complete alphabet code of life strung along the double helix of DNA in every cell, and suddenly human existence is headed for totally new destinations. It's as if someone handed us a map of an undiscovered continent. In a world where we think there's little left to explore, the human genome is a new frontier. More knowledge will be revealed over the coming decades and will change everything about the way we age and fight and prevent both hereditary and non-hereditary diseases. The advancement of technology that analyzes the human genome has enabled a whole new landscape of research and discovery about human life that has never existed before. A microscopic speck of DNA is the closest we can come to seeing the whole world compressed in a grain of sand. It defies imagination how nature devised such a scheme, but it did, and here you are, the expression of that world and the millions of years of evolution that has taken place there. DNA compresses life, time, and space into that speck, as stated by Deepak Chopra. Although 98% of our genes are all the same, our protein coding genes comprise the remaining 2% of your genome. This small part is known as the exome, and it contains the genes that define your unique traits, such as lactose intolerance sensitivity, muscle tone, or straight hair. Even though we all have the same genes, everyone has different genetic variations that impact what we look like, what we're allergic to, and what our bodies need to thrive. Through the study of the human genome, researchers have discovered that each person responds in different ways to different diets because of the variations in our own DNA, which have an impact on our metabolic efficiency and how or what causes us to lose or gain weight, and much more. An example of this new landscape is mentioned in Chasing Life and discussed how researchers began looking into the reason why Indians experience low rates of Alzheimer's, heart disease, and several cancers, and found a trend in their data which correlated that these rates went away when Indians moved to Western countries and abandoned their traditional diets. A change in the Indians' diets and lifestyle coming to a Western society is what caused the illnesses they obtained, not their genetics. When they abandoned their traditions, their health reflected the consequences. With genomic information moving to the forefront of human evolution and sequencing data becoming available and placed in public domains, a whole new sector has been created, leaving room for new kinds of companies that analyze the genomic sequences to identify genes, their function, and their relationships to health and disease processes. Once genes were identified as responsible to specific disease processes, many companies in the sector focused on the discovery and development of small molecules, antibodies, proteins, and combinations of the three in search of drugs that will positively change the defective gene or dysregulated pathways. Technological advances drive innovation in the pharmaceutical and healthcare industries. The rapidly created innovations and the speed and accuracy of DNA sequencing paired with growing understanding of the genome has created a field for hundreds of companies with billions of dollars in assets that are racing for this information in order to contribute to the creation of new diagnostic and therapeutic agents. Breakthroughs have already been accomplished even before science has gained full knowledge of human DNA sequences or complete understanding of every human gene function. Predictions expected that in the next decade, progression will provide the remaining pieces of human genomic information and enable a breathtaking array of new therapeutic and preventative options for the treatment of targeted human diseases. Another chapter in the genomic story is the discovery of epigenetics, which is the transmitted information based on gene expression. As it changes, begins slowly, but are progressive and potentially reversible. Epigenetic modifications to the DNA are a bit like adding a detachable paper clip here and there, making subtle but heritable changes to gene expression. As said in Evolving Ourselves, one of the key reasons for human diversity is that about 70%, or roughly 14,000 of our own genes have these on and off switches, plus random mutations among them. So there are countless combinations of ways that these switches are flipped in the human population. As a result, there are many ways that humans adapt without any change in the core DNA. It doesn't matter who you are or who your parents are. You have innate genome flaws, and the science does not yet know the vast majority of these flaws and their true risks. Through nutrigenomics and epigenetics, we can change outcomes by controlling switches to the good and bad genes through what we do daily. Perhaps the most fascinating biological breakthrough is the discovery of the gut microbiome. Evolving Ourselves says collaborative communities of bacteria living in your gut and on your skin work to convert food to nutrients, heal wounds, help keep away really nasty competing microbes, make vitamins, and create or break down toxins. Each of these species inhabiting your body has its own genome. Your microbiome contains far more genomes of DNA than your own human cells. According to Dr. David Perlmutter, the neurons in the gut are so innumerable that scientists now call the totality of them the second brain. In fact, recent research is revealing that the second brain may not be second at all. It can act independently from the main brain and control many functions without the brain's input. And the same chemicals found in the brain are also produced in the gut, and that their availability to the brain is largely governed by the activity of gut bacteria. We are forced to realize that ground zero for all things mood-related is in the gut. Your gut has its own immune system that represents 70 to 80% of your body's total immune system. This speaks volumes about the importance and vulnerability of your gut. In bringing all this emerging science together to benefit humans, if nutrigenomics can change gene expression and the gut microbiome controls the majority of our immune system, then discovering the plants and dietary components that can protect the organs and the gut microbiome from free radical damage, oxidative stress, and DNA mutations is a key factor in preventing diseases. So what's a free radical? Dr. Sanjay Gupta eloquently answers this question by saying, we breathe oxygen into our lungs, we transfer it to our red blood cells, and then our heart pumps it around our bodies. Where cells use it to burn, it burns sugars and creates energy. A byproduct of this energy production is an unstable form of the oxygen molecule. This is a free radical or superoxide. It can wreak havoc at the cellular level, damaging cells. The same oxygen that keeps us alive is also responsible for oxidative damage to the cell. Oxidative stress occurs when free radical activity in the cell is greater than the available antioxidants can handle, causing the cell's reserves to become overwhelmed and damaged. This damage affects every part of the cell, including mutating the DNA and the mitochondria, which cause cancerous tumors. Mitochondria are the primary energy source for the cell and are known as the cell's power plant. Loss of function of the mitochondria promotes fatigue and ultimately causes cell death. Fortunately, new science can prove that through nutrigenomics, people can reduce the free radicals that cause oxidative stress to cells and mitochondria and present what is the leading cause of most all major diseases, oxidative stress. According to NBC Chief Medical Correspondent Dr. Sanjay Gupta in the book Chasing Life, The Quest for Immortality, for years, researchers thought the solution to neutralizing free radicals might lie in antioxidant vitamins. The government and others underwrote large-scale long-term studies to see whether increased doses of vitamin E, A, and C would offer extra disease-fighting protection. The experiments did not produce the hoped-for results. Taking extra doses of antioxidants didn't help to reduce free radicals at all. He further explained that it's not one nutrient, one disease sort of thing. It's complex. Studies of the disease-fighting power of different vitamins tends to be overly simplistic, and that looking at one vitamin at a time to help with one disease isn't the right approach. Antioxidant therapy by no means is a dead topic. We have simply been looking at the wrong ones, Dr. Joe McCord says. The focus should be on how we can supplement our diets to increase the levels of enzymes within the body that do the heavy lifting to neutralize free radicals, superoxide dismutase, an enzyme Dr. McCord discovered almost 40 years ago. Neutralizing free radicals by having the body produce its own primary antioxidant enzymes is proven to be a much better approach than supplementing with secondary antioxidants like vitamins, and is millions of times more effective. When SOD encounters a free radical, it quenches that free radical and then goes on to quench another and another and another. Primary antioxidants quench millions of free radicals per second every second and continue to do so over 3 to 4 days until the enzyme is broken down in the cell and replaced, versus traditional antioxidants like vitamins that only neutralize one free radical for one molecule that you consume of a vitamin or antioxidant. Through new research methods, the science community is identifying the plants, foods, and chemical agents that can upregulate the genes that produce antioxidant enzymes within the cells that are millions of times more powerful. These endogenous protective enzymes are signaled by proteins. The protein responsible for turning on the cell's protective mechanism is known as nuclear respiratory erythroid-derived 2, or NRF2, and sits in the cell's cytoplasm. Under normal or unstressed conditions, NRF2 is kept in the cytoplasm by a cluster of proteins that degrade it quickly. But under oxidative stress, NRF2 is not degraded, but instead travels to the nucleus or the brain of the DNA, where it binds to a promoter and initiates transcription of antioxidant genes and their proteins. As such, when NRF2 is expressed, it activates primary antioxidants like SOD and catalase, and a detoxifying molecule called glutathione, which is the cell's master detoxifier. These 3 microscopic vacuum cleaners are responsible for cleaning up cells, but as humans age, these enzymes are not activated as often because NRF2 doesn't switch on as frequently after the age of 25. Without an intentional activation through supplementation or even under the conditions of oxidative stress, it does not activate. This lack of NRF2 activation is what causes aging in mammals and enables the progression of diseases like cancer and diabetes. So research shows that cruciferous vegetables, which include the brassica family of cabbage, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, wasabi, watercress, and other vegetables, can act as a natural NRF2 activator. But the quantities required to consume to produce a strong NRF2 response are around 5 pounds a day. The more effective plants that have been used in traditional Ayurvedic and Chinese medicine, like turmeric, green tea, and milk thistle, are proving to be very powerful NRF2 activating ingredients. Nutrition companies are designing supplements with these kinds of dried plant extracts to provide effective NRF2 activation for people to use daily in lieu of vitamins. The most researched NRF2 activator currently on the market is called Protandim and is manufactured by LifeVantage, a publicly traded company on the NASDAQ exchange, which trades under the ticker symbol LFVN. Protandim has 23 peer-reviewed published studies at the National Institutes of Health Library of Medicine. The clinical data shows that Protandim NRF2 reduces oxidative stress in humans an average of 40% in 30 days, and is also proven to extend median lifespan in mammals by 7%. Other Protandim research shows it reduces cancerous tumors, dissolves scar tissue in the heart and lungs, and prevents cardiovascular disease. But like all nutraceutical supplements, it is not FDA approved. Therefore, the company can't make medical claims that Protandim NRF2 treats, cures, heals, or mitigates any disease. Another company, Zymogen, hired neurologist and author of Brain Maker and Grain Brain, Dr. David Perlmutter, as Chief Science Officer, who has also formulated several variations of NRF2 activation supplements. This new approach to antioxidant therapy is poised to be a leader in the nutraceutical space because it represents a new tool that wasn't available in the past. There simply wasn't a known way to reduce oxidative stress and free radicals. As consumers begin to learn about this new category of supplementation, NRF2 and other science-based protein activators stand to disrupt the vitamin sector and cause the antiquated secondary antioxidant therapies like Centrum and one-a-day vitamins, of which 75% of the US population is using some variation of multivitamin, to become obsolete. With the current state of health in America, where 40% of adults are obese and cancer attacks 1 in 2 men and every 1 in 3 women with a 50% chance of survival, advancements like NRF2 activators that can potentially fight and prevent diseases can't come fast enough. But why are Americans so sick, overweight, and generally uneducated about nutrition and nutrigenomics in general? Global obesity nearly doubled between 1980 and 2014. 1 in 3 Americans is now clinically obese with a body mass index of over 30. Obesity's roots are in American culture, from the stress of the workplace and onslaught of food advertising to the tradition of holiday overindulgence. Our youth's taste buds are geared toward food that's junk and sugary treats, habits that will follow children into adulthood. Also, American society is structured around productivity and long work hours, which leaves little time and energy for exercise, which is critical to improving health. This leads to an unbalanced life, unhealthy lifestyles, and unhappy people. For many families struggling with paychecks, the foods that make the most financial sense are processed, unhealthy choices serving up the most calories. The temptation of unhealthy foods greets us on every street corner, every restaurant and workplace, and even our favorite supermarkets. To top it off, big corporations still legally camouflage chemicals and toxins they use to produce our foods to make them bigger, prettier, meatier, and of course, tastier. Consumers need to learn to read labels and put foods with chemicals and toxic ingredients back on the shelf. In the thought-provoking book, Evolving Ourselves, the author states, as a species, we have been conducting a large-scale experiment over very few decades as to what happens to a human body when it massively increases its average weight, a trend that may have long-term evolutionary consequences. We Americans are eating too much, yet we can't seem to reverse it. One of the biggest global health threats is that society is addicted to sugar. This is a primary cause of the diabetes epidemic, obesity and type 2 diabetes, which is likely the biggest epidemic in human history. According to the 2017 U.S. National Diabetes Report, there are 30 plus million people with diabetes in the U.S. population today. Numbers for pre-diabetes indicate that 84 million adults, or 33.9% of the U.S. population, have pre-diabetes, including 23 million adults aged 65 and older, which is the largest category. Sugar is also proven to cause and feed cancer and increase blood sugar levels, which increases the risk of dementia and Alzheimer's disease, which is the next growing pandemic after diabetes. At the advice of doctors, big pharma, and the media outlets advertising health and weight management products, many people have switched to using artificial sweeteners, thinking that they're safer and healthier than sugar. Imitation sugars are chemical agents, like double agents, and they fool the body into ingesting them because the body thinks they're sweet. The body will normally work hard to get rid of these poisons, but the sweet taste tricks it. The organs get fooled and fail to filter out the toxins. To compound the problem, the taste of sweet does cause the release of insulin, which lowers blood sugar. And if carbohydrates aren't consumed, it causes a drop in blood sugar, which triggers hunger and cravings for sugar. For almost all fake sugars, independent studies prove that they cause rapid and uncontrolled growth of aberrant cells that will ultimately turn into malignant tumors over time. There are 5 FDA-approved artificial sweeteners: acesulfame potassium, which is Sunnit and Sweet One; aspartame, which is Equal and NutraSweet; neotame; saccharin, which is Sugar Twin and Sweet and Low; and sucralose, which is Splenda. All of these are chemicals. Saccharin was one of the first commercially available artificial sweeteners, and it's actually a derivative of tar. There are numerous studies showing the link between the use of artificial sweeteners and increases in obesity and cancer rates, but the FDA continues to approve these chemical agents as safe for consumption. The FDA has approved over 70,000 chemicals as safe. Many of these weaken the immune system, inviting cancer and other diseases and autoimmune issues to arise. The pharmaceutical industry that owns many of the supposed diet and health food products, like Ensure, which is owned by Abbott Labs, spends 80% of their budgets on advertising and 20% on researching the drugs, supplements, and food products that they offer. They also employ the most powerful lobbyists in Washington, whose job is to get all these chemical-based products certified as safe through the FDA and other government agencies. Another serious health risk is that industrialized fast food and packaged foods are the go-to lunch and dinner items for most Americans today, due to their ease and low cost. Many of these foods are cooked in microwave ovens. It is scientifically proven that there is direct damage to cell walls and genes from cooking with microwaves. As stated in the compelling book, Don't Eat Cancer by Sean David Cohen, it is the technology of breaking cells, extinguishing the life of the cells by neutralizing the electrical potentials. To top it off, these foods are also wrapped in plastic or placed in plastic containers and microwaved, causing BPA and phthalates to leak into food, which is a cancer-causing agent. Enriquez and Goulans state the biggest challenge today to food safety is for almost 3/4 of birth defects. Not one gene, variant, or chemical has been identified as a smoking gun, which means it's very hard to get funding, published, or prove that a specific chemical is what causes or contributes to a specific condition to be marketed and sold as safe. Our environments and foods and combinations unique to each of us are causing each human to mutate differently, which make it very hard to study outcomes in a laboratory setting with any reliability. In this new world, Darwin may revise his theory of evolution from natural selection to unnatural selection and non-random mutation. An example of this evolutionary shift is the staggering rates of autism, which used to be known as an inherited disease where the chances of autism were 1 in 20. Now genetics can only predict autism by 50%, and rates have increased to 1 in 8 for births in the United States. Due to poor diet and environmental factors, we have turned an inherited disease into a national crisis for our children and our families, not unlike having a loaded gun around a child. All of this should serve as a warning and a sample glimpse of the dangers of things like gene-altering technologies, coupled with the challenges of validating its safety and the safety of foods and chemicals. Now one can easily imagine what the biotech industry as a whole is doing to the most popular foods and seeds like corn, soy, alfalfa, and canola, which are in most of our processed foods like cereals, crackers, snacks, and condiments. The easiest way to know that food is safe to buy: wash and consume only organic foods. Avoid eating anything processed and don't cook using a microwave oven. Genomics and nutrigenomics-based research is slowly making it easier to develop improved diagnostics and evidence-based approaches that demonstrate clinical efficacy and benefits in humans for drugs, supplements, and other medical device technologies. Treatments in the future will be tailored to a patient's particular genomic makeup and will truly be like designer drugs and supplements developed from analyzing huge populations of genomic health data points. The last trillion-dollar industry was built on a code of ones and zeros. The next will be built on our own genetic code, per Alec Ross of the Industries of the Future. The challenge in bringing these sciences to the forefront is that it takes considerable time, effort, and funding to move from discoveries from a lab to a clinical setting, and ultimately to the consumer. New drugs based on genomic research will take between 10 to 15 years before they're available, due to the bottleneck that the FDA creates in getting drugs approved, and the expense. Just imagine how much harder it is to clinically validate the benefits of a good diet or plant-based supplements in NRF2 activation, where there is no system in place to go through FDA approval. There are limited resource budgets, and there's little to no government support. There's virtually no government funding going into research on disease prevention using foods and supplements. The money for disease prevention research is through private funding from companies and philanthropic organizations. All the big government grant money goes to developing the drugs to help cure the diseases once they're diagnosed. This makes absolutely no sense. We can't afford to wait for the medical community or the US government to educate us on how to be healthy. It's not in their business model. The future of our world depends on the actions we take today to educate society on the benefits of changing our dietary habits and lifestyle choices by adopting a nutrigenomics approach to lifestyle. This new paradigm in nutrigenomics and one's ability to change gene expression is the most exciting discovery in the history of medicine because it has the capacity to extend human life and turns on its head the old notion that our DNA is our destiny. Thank you.